ModSquad featuring Ian Schnoor, Executive Director of Financial Modeling Institute, Giles Male, humble MVP and co-founder of Full Stack Modeler, and Paul Barnhurst, the FP&A guy.
This week, we're going to dig into Excel Agent. If you're not a good modeler, don't start with AI prompts. Go take a course, build a strong foundation, then use AI to help you.
Extremely impressive. I have a forecast of the income statement. Just eyeballing it, I can see that the revenue directionally is moving in the right direction. Done a great job building that.
They all put actual formulas in.
In the financial modeling task, it's done really well mechanically.
I'm really impressed with this one. It calculated the change in working capital, which is correct. It's the actual change.
What does this mean for the other tools if Microsoft's agent is that many steps ahead of where they're at?
Welcome to another episode of the ModSquad Pod. I'm your host, Paul Barnhurst, aka the FP&A guy, and I have here with me my other two hosts. Really excited to do another episode. So why don't we start with Ian? Why don't you give a real quick introduction to our audience?
Thank you, Paul. It's great to be back here with you and Giles, and nice to see the rest of you watching. I'm Ian Schnoor, Executive Director of the Financial Modeling Institute. I'm running our tests on three-statement modeling, corporate finance modeling, and we'll get into some other tests like that applicable to those working in sort of accounting and finance, corporate finance fields. My whole career is been in financial modeling, and I'm excited to be working with the two of you on this great podcast.
Over to you, Giles. Why don't you do a quick introduction of the humble MVP?
Sure. Well, it's a pleasure to be back again, and I'm particularly excited about this episode, actually, with all the stuff that's gone on in the last week online. So, yeah, co-founder of Full Stack Modeler, Microsoft MVP, lifelong modeler, and esports. I should mention that more. Excel Esports player this year. Very, very average player.
No, you are above average. You are above average. You are scoring well.
He is above average. He's humble. That's why he's the humble MVP. He won't admit his real score.
An outstanding competitor, yes.
So this week, we're going to dig into Excel Agent. About a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, wasn't very long, they released the beta version of the Excel Agent, which you have to have Copilot to access. It's an online tool only, but it does many of the things similar to these other tools. And so it's got a ton of publicity online. I know, Giles, you've had many conversations, seen some things. Kind of maybe share a little bit of your thoughts so far with what's going on as far as Excel Agent.
I asked a question on the Unpivot podcast months ago saying, I wonder what's going to happen if Microsoft catches up. So the Excel Agent, for me, I'm really excited about. I think it's fantastic. If Microsoft could lead the way, but have pressure from good competitors, I'm happy. What I'm not happy about, which I may have expressed once or twice, is where people get a little bit carried away with the language and say, you just click a button, get a coffee, and your model's built. And I think we need to really unpick whether that's true or not. If it is, awesome. But let's see.
So what are your initial thoughts, Ian? I know you've seen some things online. We've talked a little bit about this. Where are you at now that you've had a little time to think about this? I know we touched on it last week, but
I don't tend to spend as much time maybe as some other people online getting involved in some of the
So Ian has more of a life than you and I do.
You're a mature adult. That's why. I get it.
I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure that everyone would agree with that statement, but maybe I'm just lucky that I don't have quite the time. But that's fine. I just spent some time online. Listen, I've seen what's going on. I don't love me. I think we're all in a similar boat. We're all excited about all of these tools. The Excel Agent, while it was frustrating to get launched and installed for me, and I couldn't get it working easily. And of course, right now it's only in the online cloud version of Excel, and you seem to need a Copilot license. So it's not the most straightforward path to get it, but I finally managed to get it working. It's impressive. Listen, I will always be impressed when I can, write an English sentence, or presumably someone can write a sentence in any language, and then you just watch it building things in a spreadsheet. That's still pretty mind-blowing. It performed very, very well. But as you said, Giles, We're not talking about where you enter a sentence, it does a whole day of work for you, and you go home. I mean, now we'll see that in the test, especially when it comes to model building. So, but really impressive start, and I'm excited about what we're seeing here.
And one thing I said over the weekend is we saw, a lot of people getting really excited about it and maybe over promising on what it could do. Is my conclusion, and it hasn't changed. I think it really was at the start. I'm more convinced of this now, is if you're not a good modeler, don't start with AI prompts. Go take a course, go build some models, build a strong foundation, then use AI to help you. If you're using it for assumptions, like to help validate assumptions, give you ideas of inflation, maybe some ideas for scenarios, how to write a formula, all those things, great. But don't just think I'm going to become a modeler today and write your prompt and turn it into somebody. That's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Well, I'm going to show in my testing, I am going to show, I mean, I agree with you 100%. People need better modeling skills than ever, I believe. Take a course with one of you, get your AFM certification, right? That proves that you have incredible modeling skills, because it is only at that point, I was able to find errors in some of these AI generated models that others might not find unless they were also really strong modelers. And so it is important. You do not want to be caught off guard with a mistake that you couldn't catch.
And that was the message from so many from my posts is, Lance Rubin and many others were saying, I fully agree with you that it's going to make the best modelers are going to get benefit out of it. If you don't know what you're doing, then learn what you're doing. Giles, you were going to say something. I saw that look.
I was just going to try and pre-counter the accusation that, for me personally, as the co-founder of a training business for Excel and modeling, it would be like, oh, of course you would say that. I don't care where you get training. If what you just said, Ian, is spot on. Like, if you want to go and train with anyone that's reputable, please do that rather than do what you just suggested, which would be to just go, oh, AI, I'm a modeler, hit a prompt, go and get a coffee. Like, just get the training.
Building a model, as we all know, it's a discipline and it's a skill. It requires judgment. It requires thinking and asking good questions. It's no different than any other skill, like playing a sport or flying an airplane. I mean, in theory, I could be, chosen to be a pilot of an airplane, and 99% of the chance that even though I know nothing about flying a plane, I could become a pilot tomorrow, and the plane could take off and land, and I'll get lucky because there are AI tools built in to airplanes and autopilots that it'll work. But you don't want me there in the odd chance that something goes wrong, right? That I need to troubleshoot. You want to make sure that whoever is driving this engine, driving this machine, knows how to troubleshoot, knows how to look you in the eye and assure you that it's all working, that they're all set. Because things do go wrong a lot, and you need to make sure that you can step in when needed.
It's a really good analogy. You think, right? Commercial pilots to fly those big planes, I think they have to have what? It's like 1,000, 2,000, so many thousands of hours before they can even get that job. And it's not because the tool doesn't do 80% of the flying. It does. A lot of it's on autopilot in the machine. When those landing gear doesn't work, when turbulence hits, when the wing goes on fire, I want that experienced pilot.
And by the way, I mean, you don't even need AI for airplanes. I mean, airplanes have had autopilot mode for a long time. Sometimes when I run webinars all over the world, at times I'll start and I'll, ask, the group or the class, hey, who here would get on an airplane with no pilot? Imagine one day walking onto an airplane and they said proudly, look at this, you're going to fly, you're going to go up in the sky. There's no pilot. Now there are taxis doing that, of course, and there are cars. And maybe it's just a mindset and we will get there. But right now, I can promise you, most people I speak to would not be comfortable being on an airplane, flying it, if there was no pilot at the front. Even though if they thought about it, they'd realize that when there is a pilot, that pilot may not be doing that much on their own anyway, but they're there, right? And I don't know if you ever thought about that analogy, Giles, but that sort of feels relevant to me and what we're talking about.
I do not want you flying any plane I'm on anytime soon. So
would you rather have nobody flying it? Is that what you're saying, Giles?
Oh, that's different. Well, I think I'd rather have Ian there than nobody, just as a backup. Yeah, I'd take you over nobody. There you go. There's a compliment.
And you know what? You probably would, because you'd probably take a human, because, presumably you could speak to air traffic control and they could try and give you some instructions, right? But what you're saying is you want someone there who can help troubleshoot. Important.
All right. So I think we've covered that, made some great points there. I want to share one other thing. I did some testing over the weekend. I showed this to you guys earlier, and we thought we'd bring it on the show for a minute. So I'm going to share it. So let me just level set what I did, and we'll bring it back again after we've done some more. But I took the easy Excel Esports case that we've tested the last few weeks. That's the Excel athlete case. And I ran it through Rosie AI, and I ran it through the Excel agent, and I ran it through each of them twice. And so what we have here is, hey, what model do they use? This one's using Copilot. This one's using ChatGPT. Very similar. What's the level, max score, how they scored? Each of them got the exact same score. They each got 1210 out of 1250. They missed the bonus question 5, which there's a very easy reason why they did. They both took roughly the same time to run it, within a second of each other. They all used formulas. Each time, all of them were formula-based. And in some cases, they use the exact same formula between the tools. So let me sort this by level, because I think it will be kind of interesting. So, right, I could see, oh, hey, they use the exact same method for level 1.
So you are, this is Excel in the
Google
cloud
user.
that you're showing us, I
is
believe. Is
Google.
that correct?
I'm using Google Sheets right now, so shame
Oh
on
my
me.
goodness. Giles, close your ears.
It's fine. I'm relaxed about things when people do things that are slightly different to me. It's fine.
All right. So question 1, they both answered it the exact same way. Question 2, similar but different approaches, right? One put a value in the front, one used the double negative in the front to
Yeah,
convert it from a text string.
and I
And
think
then one did a sum here, like you mentioned before, one did a plus and did an array constant.
And
so
can you just remind us, can you go left for 1 second just to show everyone one more time? You're talking about each of these rows, just so everyone can see
yeah,
it.
so each row
is-
here is, first row is Rosie, second is Excel agent, level 1. In fact, let me hide
Which I had this.
these
So
columns.
that's right. So just a reminder, you're showing how you ran it under Rosie AI, which is the tool we looked at last week, versus the new Excel agent. And you're saying question 1, they did a very similar, I did the same thing, didn't they? You're saying for
The
question
exact same thing. There's really kind of one simple answer for that.
Yeah.
So they did the same thing. If we go to level 2, they each took a slightly different approach, but very similar. They each used the lat, they each used text, split, substitute, and large.
so I think they're both good answers. I think the fact the Excel agent has used the array as part of large to pull both the first and the second largest is impressive. But yeah, both good.
But what's interesting is over here, try number 2, they each used a different answer. So they may have both used let again, but it wasn't the same
Sure.
formula. Something was different in it. Either they, like the first one may have done sum, the other one may have done a plus instead of the array constant. So they changed up the formula a little bit. I thought that was interesting. Now, if we go to question 3, very different approaches, and not surprising, Rosie took a really complex method. I would never do it this way. It works, but right, putting an array constant for the numbers 1 to 9 and a find when all you need to do is a simple indirect.
Yes.
And then the next time it did the simple indirect. So 3 of the 4 times it used the same formula, but this gets back to what we've said before, and we'll continue to see this. If I'm getting a different answer every time, what if I'm adding a new year? Am I confident it's going to use the same formula as it did in the prior column, or is it going to try a new way of solving it? Or am I going to be smart enough to prompt it to say, hey, you need to use the same formula as you add the new year, right? These are little things that I think can confuse people. Exact same answer here. And then, same answer here, but different here. And so the more complex, it used a different answer each time, right? Because you would agree, this is you got to think more through the solution than this one. There's really kind of one way 90% of people do it.
Yeah, but what neither tool has spotted, that the answer for level 5 is one very small tweak to the solution that they had at level 4 with len and substitute. So they both answered it right, but they've both taken quite an overly complex route to get there. But it's still right.
Yeah, I mean, again, and this continues to is very impressive. It's mind-boggling actually that They can read English instructions, figure out which are the green cells or the colored cells that need to have the answer put in. It understands that and it puts in an answer. Brilliant. At the same time, I continue to believe that if you are using this in your work to try to, take an instruction and build a solution, you sure want to make sure that you understand what it has generated as a response, to know if it's reasonable, to know what the tool's doing, to know if there's a better way. And so there's a lot of people in the Excel world that don't use the indirect function or the sum product and don't understand what they do. But the flip side is it's a great learning opportunity to try and take a solution and say, hey, I'm going to learn something by what it's done here.
Yep. So I think the highlight is great. They all put actual formulas in.
Yep.
The only place they hard coded, sorry,
Bless you.
let them edit that out, or we'll just bless me.
No,
All
leave
right.
it in. Leave it in.
I
It's
agree.
great.
Bless you.
We're leaving it in. The only place they used text was really around array constants, or setting it to a 1 or 2. So it makes sense. It's not like in some of the others where we've seen a lot of manual.
Yeah,
stuff.
none of these has typed in dead numbers
Correct.
into which it could do instantly, but a human couldn't do. So they have all generated formulaic answers for the solutions. But fascinating to me, as you said, that they've used, which makes sense. Two different people would choose two approaches to solve the same problem, and
Yeah.
two versions of AI have chosen different ways.
Each time, though, half the time they've chosen something different. 5 minutes later, getting the exact same question. That's could be concerning.
They are both very impressive sets of solutions. I know they're not
Yep.
perfect, but
Yep.
they've understood
I
the
mean,
question. They've got
on the whole, I give
formula-based
them an A
solutions.
here.
Yeah.
Right? They got 1210 out of 1250. That's a great score. The answers clearly show that they've been trained well on Excel formulas. They're able to reason through complex formulas. And let's just show a quick example. So I think we'll move into testing the agent mode. So this is the same case I just showed you. What we're going to do is I'm not going to do level 1 and then ask it to do the rest. We're going to have it do all 7.
Paul, I'm just conscious, like, we really want to give Ian as much time as possible on this one. Do we even need to show this?
So I think we just let's go to the next one. I agree.
Because you've basically just shown it basically got it right with formulas.
Yep. I'm with you. All right. So we've been recording that whole time. We're providing our humor. You get to hear us unscripted. We might let him edit, but we'll probably leave it all in. All right. So I asked it to open the new case. Is it going to open it? Error installing functions. All right. I'm going to pause it for 1 second. We'll be back with the case up. After some internal discussion, we've decided to skip the Excel athlete case because we just showed you it can solve it. In the interest of time, if you've watched the other episodes, you've seen it twice. And so where we want to focus on is the humble MVP.
Focus
The
on me.
greatest MVP in the world,
Focus on
the
me.
musical. It will be coming to Broadway soon. You'll be able to watch it. It's a 2-hour-long production. But in the meantime, until Giles gets the funding to build that, he's had an Excel case built all about it. And so this is our complex Excel case. This is a lot harder than the other one. It has things like the humble closet, where we can see Giles has all his fur coats and outfits. It has dance formations. So if you're a dancer, you might recognize some of these. If you're not, you might be like, what the heck? But they have to figure out different moves and positions. And you can see the dancer in the formation. And here's the lyrics to his awesome song. So basically, there are the bonus questions and the different levels of the actual case. This is the main stage here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to feed it all this information, and we're going to ask it to solve level 1. If it does that right, we're going to solve the other levels. So I put in the same prompt we've used before. We're going to go ahead and hit play, and then I'll give Giles 30 seconds to see if he wants to add any color to the case before we just let it run. So we're going to go ahead and kick off level 1. Go ahead, Giles. Any color you want to add?
Only that level 1 can trip people out, or we've seen it trip tools out before, where you've got to look at the closet. So if you go back to the humble closet tab, you've got to go over to the right hand side. You showed the picture, but what you're actually going to have to do, or the tool is going to have to do, is look here, and it's looking at counting the number of items in each of these vertical fur coat stacks. So this can be quite tricky. And then it ramps up. So there's other questions about the fur coats. then the dancer's spatial logic that you've got to deal with. So yeah, this is tricky.
The reclusive recursive. Let's check out some of these names for a second before we pause here. We got the glow stick Arctic rave. The one I'm really curious about, do you really have the pimp as one of your shelves in your closet, Giles?
100%. Yeah. Every one of these fur coats I own and handmade. They're great.
The Queen of Narnia. And that, folks, explains his humbleness. So in the
Yeah.
meantime, we'll be back here in a moment. All right, we're back and we're experiencing what others have shared on LinkedIn and other social media that, right, Excel Agent is in beta. And sometimes what we find is things just hang up forever. And we're experiencing potentially that now. It's hard to know. One of our problems with Agent is it doesn't tell you where it's at in the process. All you get is, hey, here's this little moving thing at the bottom. I guess it's still working, but you just have no idea how close it is. If it's really working, is it going to stay there forever? So we've made the choice to kill it. Any thoughts on that, Giles?
We've been going, how long did you say? We've been
Almost
going
12
here.
minutes now, 11 and a half, 12 minutes.
Goes. Now, believe it or not, well, that's actually not the same as forever. I know in our day, our current brains, we think that 10 seconds is forever, but it's still, to your point, I'm just bugging you. It's a long time, isn't it? And it's a long time. And I agree with you. What I liked about the other tools we looked at is they gave us some sense that they were working, processing, thinking. So this, we're not sure. We're just seeing that moving dotted line at the bottom. Maybe it's hung up. Maybe it's working, but it's hard for us to know, Giles.
Yeah, to add to that, I think the measure that's always in my head is, could I have done it faster? And that's been my frustration with ChatGPT and Claude at times where you go, oh God, I could have just done this myself. The first question, once you understand it, albeit there are some tricky areas to it, you could have done that within 5 minutes, I would have thought, if you knew what you were doing.
You get what, 30? They got 30 minutes for this case?
30 minutes for the case. Yeah, we would have done this quicker manually.
Yeah, so level 1, you need to be finishing in probably 3 to 5 minutes if you're doing 7 levels and bonus questions.
Definitely.
If not less. Ideally, a lot of them are doing 1-2 minutes for level 1, right? Especially, depends on the case, but I mean, your more advanced, experienced people are 1, 2, 3 minutes for level 1.
Yeah, a maximum.
Yeah, sometimes
maximum,
30 seconds if it's a really easy one.
It's the easiest one in the whole question, of course, isn't it, Giles? This question.
This is the easiest level, I think. Yeah. So we asked it to just solve level 1. So there you go. We have killed it.
So it did not perform nearly as well. It didn't perform at all. But it didn't perform. I mean, whereas the other tools we looked at did solve this level, didn't it? Fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So you know what could be interesting, and we'll just give it a minute or two, is just say review level 1 and let me know if you have any questions. Just see how quick it comes back and reads it, how it thinks about it in the interest of time. Review. Okay. Please review the question for
Nice polite
level
start.
1
Like
and
it.
let me know if you have any questions and how you would think about solving it. So not asking it to solve it, just see if it will come back quickly. We'll give it a couple minutes here and then we'll just kill it if it doesn't give us anything. Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Agent mode, you know, I think the biggest issues we're all experiencing from when we online different things. 1, it's online. It's not in desktop. 2, you just have no idea, is it hanging up or is it working? And, you know, I think the third thing, which I think is a good thing, but you're seeing is 1, it picks what it's doing. You don't have to select through a bunch of different models, which at times can be a problem, but for, I'd say, the average user, that's a good thing, right? Not having to try to figure out what model to use.
I think we kind of said on that after the last episode, which is probably still my position, is I think having the tool choose which is the best LLM would be great. It doesn't feel like it. Well, none of them that we've tested so far do that. Having the choice manually sounds great, but actually might add a layer of even more stress and confusion. But I do think the big drawback at the moment, well, they're all drawbacks. It being online, massive drawback, but it's a first stab, and I'm sure it will end up with the desktop. Not seeing the thought process, I think, is a really big drawback at the moment. But again, maybe that will update as well in a future version.
All right. Well, we'll give this about another 30 seconds, then we'll just go ahead and kill it and move on.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because all you asked it to do this time was just say, what are your thoughts on level 1? And it seems to be just hanging.
Part of it could be the day we're testing that now has been out a week or a ton more people on it, and that, the bandwidth isn't quite there yet.
Maybe.
Hard to know. But we definitely, people complained about it hanging, and we're now experiencing it. This is the first time I've really had this particular experience. All right. We're going to kill it. Going to close this, and we'll be back in a minute with the FP&A use case. We'll run through a couple of those and see if we can get them to work. With any luck, you won't be listening to us just ramble with nothing happening on the screen. So we'll be back here in a moment. All right, we're back. And now we're going to cover some FP&A use cases. We're going to start the first one with what we call a PVM, price volume mix. It can be done on gross margin. It can be done on price, on a number of different things. This is a case we do with our FP&A students in our courses. It's called Paul's Getting Spicy. It's an inside joke because every so often I get a little grumpy. And my co-partner says, depending on how many peppers he calls it, I tell him I am, decides whether he'll come to the meeting or not. So he labeled that to have fun. But let's get to the real point. Basically, it's a smoothie business. There's 3 types of smoothies. There's BB, Barnhurst Basics, PMP, Polly's Mango Punch, and the Boss, Barnhurst Organic Superfood Smoothie. So we'll see here, we have units or volume of what was sold. You can see the percentage. So this is what we budgeted. You can see BB was supposed to be 25%. These others 38. We can see what the gross margin was supposed to be, the gross margin per unit, how much margin we get on each unit, the overall. Then we can see the actuals. In actuality, we sold more units, different mix, different gross margin per unit. So what we're going to ask the tool to do, and we can see we have the formulas in here. So this is fairly straightforward, is we're going to ask it to calculate what was the price amount, how much was due to volume in total, and then how much was driven by mix for each product. How much was the miss of the volume for each individual project, so we can understand the mix. It should come back with an answer of 220. For the first one, we're going to ask it to just solve price. Then we'll ask it to solve the next 2. So this should be a fairly quick return, but let's go ahead and kick it off and see how long it takes. All right, we'll be back in a moment. After several minutes of discussing things like famous parents and singing and videos and all kinds of other stuff as we waited, we decided to come back in. And you can see agent mode is still spinning. What we don't know is this due to agent in general not working? Is this something with my account? But these are the type of things you're going to deal with in real life, especially if you're trying to use a tool in beta. And so it's just something you have to be aware of. Excel Labs has worked great many times for me. So I'm still a proponent of agent mode. I think it can do great things, but at the moment it's not working well. And that's always a challenge of live testing. So what we're going to do, we're going to get in set up and we're going to do his testing here in a minute. But before we do that, Ian or Giles, anything you want to add to this section of our testing? Anything you want to tell the audience?
I'm still reeling from the news that Giles comes from famous progeny. But you know what? Everything makes so much more sense now. It all comes together. The white fur coat, the singing and dancing, the performance art. It's like it clicked for me, Paul. What about for you?
It did. Knowing he has, parents that are quite musical and into the music, that makes sense of his videos and his productions, and we could see where he gets that incredible talent from.
Well, I have none of it. I just know, luckily my sister and my brother-in-law are very talented. So I'm just using their talent.
Well, I don't agree with that part, but it all hangs together now. As for the tool, yeah, I mean, listen, you're right, Paul. Maybe this is just your account or your system acting up. However, this is what people potential experience. Let's see if I have any better luck with, again, I said this before, I wish though, unlike the other tools, I wish that agent was giving me some sense that it was processing, thinking, working, refining an answer. It gets frustrating when you just see it, the dots and bars moving without any sense for whether you're hung up or whether it's going to generate an answer.
And it's not working, not just hung up. I just asked it, you there? And it hasn't responded yet.
He's deep. Oh, it's deep in thought, deep in thought.
That that should not take long to respond to.
Well,
So-
Can I just add one thing?
Yes.
And again, it's just an observation because I've actually seen some posts from Microsoft people, sometimes resharing other things from other people. The difference between the message you get or the assumption you might make about its performance from what you read versus this, we don't know what the cause is night and day. And again, that is the thing that gets me triggered a little bit. It's like, God, we just need to be objective and honest about this stuff. It's not perfect. It's beta. And I don't know why the messaging isn't just that. Try it. Let's help it get better.
All righty. I'm going to pause. We're going to switch to end screen and we'll see how this works. Back in a moment. We are back with Excel agent mode set up on another person's computer.
It didn't like you, Paul. It didn't like you. Let's see if it likes me any better. I mean, this is now my screen. You're seeing in the cloud, and not my favorite environment, but for spreadsheets. But in the cloud, we've got the Henderson AFM model, the model that people, a full 3-statement model of a company with a cover, an executive summary, an assumption sheet, the scenarios, and then the actual model. This is a classic 3-statement model. It's exactly what people need to build on the AFM exam. And so I am going to get see if agent mode can answer some questions. Let's start with the same simple one I've been asking. Are there any hidden sheets in this file? And I sure hope my version works better than yours. You can see though, just like, oh, here though, look. Within a few seconds,
it likes you. I guess Microsoft knows who to treat well.
it was verifying. And if I recall, I think so Giles can't even get the software. If I recall, yours is hanging up on you. I might be the only non-Microsoft MVP in this room, and mine is working, isn't it? What do you make of that?
Yeah. Well, I'm being thrifty because I should be able to download Copilot for free as an MVP, and I couldn't work out how to do it, so I haven't done it yet.
Giles and I are just being blackballed by Microsoft. No,
we say too much. We're too vocal on LinkedIn. We're being
I don't know
don't
about
revoke our status. We love you, Microsoft.
But look at that. It did work, right? So there are hidden sheets. It knows that the covert sheet is hidden. The clandestine sheet is very hidden, and it cannot be unhidden by the Excel user interface. Very nice. So, and it even tells us how it checked. So it says there were 2 hidden sheets, one hidden, one very hidden. How I checked. It queried each worksheet's visibility and listed any that aren't visible. Okay, nice. Well, it passed that test. What about, again, are there any white values on this sheet? We discovered this, sometimes finding cells that were painted white worked, and sometimes it did not work with the agents we were looking at. So let's see if this does it. Now, this one is not. Let me just double check. There should be here. I don't know where they are, but this file should have some. There we go. Yeah. So I do have some hidden sheets here. We can see in my formula bar that there are some cells that have been painted white, and let's see if it can. It's reasoning now. It tells it sort of stopped for a second, and it's checking, and it's reasoning.
So it is working.
It says checking for hidden values, although I asked it to look for white values, and it sort of understood that white means hidden, so it's doing that. But it's again, we don't have a good sense for how close it is. Again, Giles, to your great point earlier, again, I do the same thing. I like to say, could I have done this myself faster? And again, Control and the letter A selects all. So that, doing this manually takes no more than 10 seconds. Control A selects the whole sheet, and then going to home and then to the, shading color. If I was to shade the entire background gray, I can instantly see, and all I have to do is scroll down. I can zoom down, I can scroll down, and I will see them. So clearly much, much faster to do this right now on my own, but it's exploring different approaches. Well, we might just stop this one because it's not giving me much guidance, is it? Oh, wow. Okay, this one It took 70 seconds. This one says no white font values were
And
found.
look at it tells you what range it checked. Those fonts were right outside your range, weren't they? The range it checked, which is really weird. Weren't they like in V or something?
No, they're inside the range, I believe. Let's see here.
They are.
They are. Okay, I just
okay. Yeah, they're inside the range. They're here. They're STU, and it says it checked B1 to U340. So that's fascinating because, and again, I'm using this. So to me, we use these sorts of tests. This is a general check on, capabilities, right? So other were able to do that. Now, let me see again if I can find any inconsistencies. We know that this formula has a dead hard-coded value at the end, which is a bad thing in the world of modeling, as does this cell here. Let's just see then if I can ask it to look for, are there any inconsistent formulas on this sheet? And it might take a few minutes, but we know that it's working, right? We know that it's here we go. So
we know that it likes you, so that's good.
I'm a little bit concerned, back to yours. I'm a little wondering whether there's something up with your, I mean, we can't know, but at least on mine, it's giving me some minor prompting, right? And it's changing this. So, and I'm also noticing on mine.
I'm also using Edge. I'm going to try Google Chrome and see if it works.
You'd think that it would have a more successful time with Microsoft's browser.
That's going to be my ironic moment here.
What a bit like you would think using Teams would be easier than using Zooms if you're a Microsoft person.
You might think that too, but on mine, Paul, I don't know if mine is changing colors. The little dancing dotted line is changing colors. I don't think I saw that changing colors on yours. Was it? Or am I?
I don't think it was.
I thought it was just red the whole time. But anyway, it's
I think just the fact you've got text coming up shows that maybe Paul's wasn't quite working the same way. But
right. Let's see. Yes, inconsistent formulas were found. Well, total inconsistent 392. That's a lot. But see here, we know that row 13. I'm not sure. Sometimes it's giving me, some of these could be hallucinations and actually correct, but the one I'm looking for is row 13, which has a hard-coded value, and I don't see, do you guys see? I don't see anything that's pointing out to row 13 that it has the error.
I'm not seeing anything.
I didn't see
also it's giving you R1 C1 references, which is a bit
that's
confusing.
a little unusual. And for those of you who are not familiar with that, there are two ways to denote cell references. In fact, I think 99.9999999% of Excel users use, I forget what the name of it is, but a cell name is D2. But you can also call it, you can use the RC. I don't even know. I didn't even know why. Maybe it's from a programming standpoint, perhaps.
I'm sure it has to be from a programming.
Yeah, that must be what it is, right?
I think it is. I've used it a little bit in esports for map cases, but beyond that, I've never used it in modeling, to be honest.
Well, let's see the one here, H109. Yeah, in typical grid work, I have not seen people tend to use it. Let's just hear J28. I don't know what it's, J28. So row 28 is just the gross minus the freight. This formula is the same all the way across. And it tells me it was expecting, I'm not even sure how to read this, to be honest. I'm not sure what it means when it was expecting R. Row 57. I don't know why it was looking to row 57, but that doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm not sure. Giles, do you have a sense for what this is?
No, other than obviously the numbers are going to be a reference from the starting cell, so it kind of makes it even more difficult. So it's actually from. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, what's that next bit though? Is that more useful? It's got hotspots. Go up a little bit.
Hotspot. Row ranges with multiple deviations. Rows 108 to 110. The ratio is 142. But the problem is, even in the first section here, we're not understanding what it's.
Why don't you just ask it to give you traditional references instead of R1 C1 notation, and see if it, then we can at least try to understand it. Because how often we use R1 C1, like Giles said, in your modeling? Never.
Can you please use traditional references as opposed to R1C1 notation. Sure. Let's see if it can do that.
I had to Google it because I wasn't sure. It's A1 notation. So interestingly, you're not now getting the text on the side. The color is still changing, but you're not getting that.
I opened mine in Google Chrome, and it's still just frozen. I even just said hello. Why do you keep hanging up? It won't even answer that question.
Ian, you might have to scroll down. I think there's more that's been written underneath that.
Yes, I can use traditional A1 stuff. Going forward, I'll show formulas like D20. Okay, so anyway, I think we can agree, though, that it was not, I mean, even in spite of that, it was not...
it was not finding what we wanted.
Impressive, no. So what I'm going to ask it to do, why don't we, it did not find it. That was, I thought that was going to be a little bit different. Let's try, why don't we try this? Why don't we try, I'm not even going to ask it to tell me why the balance sheet wasn't balanced. I'm not feeling optimistic that it will determine that. But what I am going to do is ask it to build a model. We're probably going to need to pause for this because when I tried this earlier, it did do something and I was pleasantly surprised. But I'm going to ask it to build a 5-year forecast model on the model sheet.
Where are you doing this, by the way? Because we can't see anything moving on the screen.
You do see it. Okay, so this is the starting point of the model. This is just the 3 years of historical financial statements for Henderson. This is what the starting point would be of any financial model. Start with the historical financial statements. This is the starting point of the model exam, the AFM exam. So this is how people start their models, a historical set of financial statements, and we build from there. I have simply said, build a 5-year forecast model on the model sheet for the years 2025, 2029, build separate schedules for revenues, costs, depreciation, income tax, working capital, debt, and equity. And I've said, make reasonable assumptions, and I want to see what it can do. So I suspect that this is probably going to take a few minutes, but let's just see if we start to get a prompt here, and then and we're timing this one so we can see how long this is going to take. But it already said it's planning, it's organizing. When it does give you feedback, I'm kind of enjoying this feedback. It's not too much, but it's first, like, at least I know it's thinking, right? It was planning, it's doing something here, it's organizing, and now it's defining. It's planning, organizing, defining. So it's doing something. So I like that.
We've seen a few versions of this as well, haven't we? So we've seen one where we got quite a lot of information shown and it stayed there and you had to scroll back up. I think, was it Rosie last week where it showed it but then took it away? It was one of the two. I think
That's right.
Rosie.
That's right. It would show it and
then it would go again. Yeah, I found that frustrating because I wanted to read, even if it was getting it wrong, I wanted to read it and see what it was getting wrong.
That's right. And we'll see if of the two tools we looked at previously, one of them gave us solutions and then said, do you want to apply them? And you had to click apply, right? Whereas the other one, it just went right in and did it. This one is actually saying finally, it seems to be making some good progress here. This is now finalizing the schedule setup, but we can see it's been running only about a minute or so, right, Paul? I think so far, and it's got a lot of good action words here, right? It was defining, it was now it's finalizing and implementing, which is doing something. I haven't seen it put anything into my spreadsheet yet. I don't, right? You know what I've discovered? Sometimes it adds things and you're not even aware it's adding things down below, but it outside of the site range, but it is working here. It is obviously
there's a lot for it to choose from as well, because if you just think about the prompt, you said build a 5-year forecast from 2025 to 2029. So it has to interpret that you've got 3 years of data in there. It's got to find the data in row 7, I think it is, to see that those 3 years are the prior years. If you think of what a modeler might do, you could go truly vertical on the same worksheet, like a lot of AFM people do. You could go my sort of fast approach, where you pull all of it out. You have separate inputs tab. You don't do any of the outputs on the same starting model tab. So how's it going to make those decisions? If it did either one or something in the middle, I'd be pretty impressed.
Agreed. Now, we formatting and final checks. Now the other tools did attempt something, not quite ready for prime time, but let's see what
Should we pause and come back when it's done, or keep
Yeah,
chatting?
why don't we
Do you think
pause?
it's closed?
Again, I think it's helpful for people to see though that there's definitely some waiting, but why don't we pause and then we'll let you know how long it took once we come back, and we'll show you exactly what it looks like as soon as we have something on the screen and it has stopped working.
We are back. It's insane. No, in all seriousness, we've been very impressed with the last round of what we got built. But Inline, take us through a little bit. The reason for what, 11 and a half minutes, and what do we get?
Yeah, amazing. Just under 12 minutes. It iterated, but it showed me what it was doing, and it took about 9 or 10 minutes until it started to start populating my my spreadsheet. I always like watching it because it often makes mistakes at the beginning, but then corrects them and fixes them. So listen, this is pretty, pretty impressive. I'm extremely impressive. I have a forecast of the income statement. Just eyeballing it, I can see that the revenue directionally is moving in the right direction. We've got costs. It is building links. It is just linking the revenues and costs down below to schedules. I asked it to build schedules. It has got something, it's got nothing for cost adjustments, but it's going down to EBITDA. It has a link to a depreciation schedule, a link to an interest schedule, and it's got taxes. Now, I am wondering, I'm not sure what it did on taxes, but it has assumed all taxes are going to be cash and no deferred taxes. So that's the kind of thing I need to understand as a modeler to know if I'm comfortable. Why did it do that or not? And the total here is also coming from below, and net income. So it's done a great job building that. And then the cash flow statement is adding back. It's adding back the depreciation from the depreciation schedule. So it's done some impressive work. It's pulling in change in working capital. It made some assumptions on the capital expenditures here. I'm not sure. We'll go see where that came from. But the point is, it has a fully integrated, complete income statement and balance sheet. Look at the cash flow statement. Let's look at the balance sheet. The balance sheet is built, and just eyeballing it, it's actually balanced, right? Look at every year. It has a 5-year forecast balance sheet. It's actually balanced. Eyeballing it. Now, a financial modeler, a good financial modeler would know that you don't ever want to see negative cash on a balance sheet. So we'll see what we can do about that. And I think it's giving me a warning about that down below, actually. So look what it says it did. It actually says it built a 5-year forecast. It said it added 5 years. It tells me all the work that it did here. It built a driver's base model rolling forward, gross revenue by year over year of a growth rate. CapEx is a percentage of net revenue, depreciation. So it tells us how it calculated everything. It tells us the assumptions it used, which are
What I like, it also says is the assumptions are editable. Like, hey, go ahead and modify them. We actually built them properly.
And then it even says, you look at this, ending cash trends negative because we modeled no revolver draws. That's like, if you like, I can add an automatic revolver to keep cash greater than or equal to 0 for a minimum cash target. That's impressive. And wanted sensitivity table. I am going to ask it to add a revolver to see what it does on that front. The working capital looks reasonable here. The net PP&E looks reasonable. Have to see what it did. It did not use a revolver. The deferred income tax is a curiosity. It has just linked it to one single cell. So it kept the deferred taxes constant.
But up above, didn't it show no deferred income taxes?
No deferred income tax expense, which would, if you had no deferred tax expense,
oh god, so I just held it to the last thing. You're never.
Yeah, that would keep the balance sheet constant, but I'd still prefer to build in a formula, but it's okay. It's doing this. It's got the long-term debt. So this is quite impressive. Here, it actually made some very reasonable assumptions about revenue growth. It made some assumptions about freight and warehousing, cost of goods sold, tax rate, etc., receivable days. It made it made working capital days assumptions, and it made some assumptions around long-term debt and an annual debt repayment, right? Impressive. And then it has the little schedules down below. So this is pretty wild. It's assuming a growth rate for revenues and cost. It built in a fixed asset PP&E schedule.
What did it do for cost? Because I noticed the COGS went down, but the revenue went up. So did it make an assumption that COGS are lower than?
It's assuming that costs are just a percentage of revenue. So not my favorite way, but I told it to just make some.
I mean, acceptable given what we told it.
Totally. It's not, it's not factoring variable and fixed costs, but that's okay for this purpose. It built in working capital. I'm really impressed with this one. It calculated the change in working capital, which is correct. It's the actual change in the working capital. This is the working capital, the assets minus liabilities. It did that right. The change in working capital is the current year minus the prior year. However, for a financial model, we're usually talking about the change in cash, which needs to be the other way. So the sign should be negative, but I'm really impressed because it did that. It actually knew to do that. So on the cash flow statement, it flipped the sign and it made that negative. So it is the correct movement of cash here. This is pretty good. It is, I mean, this is better than good. This is incredible.
How did it actually work out the balances for all the working capital lines as well? What did
Yep.
it do? Can you see?
So it's
It made work
taken the
up above
revenues.
and showed assumptions.
It's taken the revenues and then it is calculating the receivable balances
You've got a
as it's
day's
taking
assumption.
revenue times it's made a day's assumption. Yeah, it assumed
Nice.
47 days receivable, and I'm going to guess it figured out that that's what the historical days were, but not sure. It must be because the working capital balances are reasonable, right? They are growing at a reasonable pace in the future years. They all look reasonable. The prepaid expenses look reasonable, and
Yeah, it
as
looks like
does
they use a historical or pretty close to an historical average.
yeah. So it's using a very reasonable assumption. It made a debt assumption here. So let's go a step further. So far,
This is the best we've seen yet in all the times we've run.
so let's go to the bottom and say, if you'd like, I can add an automatic revolver. So now I'm going to push this a little bit harder. And please add an automatic revolver to keep cash, right? I'm going to say greater than or equal to, right? Greater than or equal to 0. And I'll say borrow whenever there's a cash shortfall and repay the revolver whenever the company has excess cash, right? Give it some instruction. Let's see what happens then if we ask it to build in a revolver. Again, I still with you guys, I believe you. I mean, the ability though to still do this, right? The ability to ask and to challenge and to get it to make, requires that we have an understanding of how this works. I would never want to just hand this in like this because I think there's already an issue on deferred taxes, but this is an incredible start. I'm not going to lie.
Well, and also, I mean, there's two things I would say. Number one, I think it's something we've talked about a few times. What does this mean for the other tools if Microsoft's agent is that many steps ahead of where they're at? The other thing I would say is actually off a comment Hilary Smart from Operis put online the other day, where she was saying, there's a very big difference between getting a model mechanically sound,
Of course.
and then right for a project. I'm really impressed by this potential for it to get close to a mechanically sound model, but then there's a huge leap between that and what are the exact situations and the assumptions you have to manage on your project. Should interest be calculated on like a 3/360 basis or whatever, actuals over 365? So those are two different things, but this is really impressive,
Yeah.
especially compared to everything else we've seen.
You can also tell it to do those type of things, right? You could say, hey, now use 360.
I mean, you probably could, but you'd have to. This is my point about you have to then have modeling skill to know the next level, because if you have no modeling skill and you go, hey, build me a financial model that does X, you need to know the next questions and prompts. But I'm still blown away. I think it's really
Yeah,
good.
this is better than any I expected at this point.
Well, and this is why a lot of financial modelers feel that there's always going to be a part of modeling that requires. I mean, I can pretty much guarantee that for a long time coming, that when you are ready to present your analysis on your infrastructure project or your investment opportunity or your credit assessment, your client, your credit committee, your boss is going to look at you in the eye and ask you, and you are going to need to be able to explain and justify and talk about how you derive the assumptions. And great, use your AI tool to help you with that. And they're going to still want to make sure you understand every element of it. Completely agree with you. However, this is still a very impressive mechanical effort, isn't it? In terms of its ability to do this work very quickly. I think we can agree it did this faster in about 12 minutes.
If you got this to start with some tweaking, you could probably, with giving it all the instructions, it could get pretty close on an AFM if it continued to be this consistent.
Well, we haven't tried. What we don't know is its ability. So
Scenarios.
I asked it to build this by just making some reasonable assumptions, and it has made some very basic reasonable assumptions around growth rates on revenue, we would all suggest that a good model should be drivers based and that revenue should factor in prices and volumes. But I assume if I gave it some price volume information, it would figure it out, but I would test it for that. What we don't know is if we gave it a 2 or 3 page case study, and we can try that, next. If we gave it a 2 or 3 page case study that simulates reality, could it then factor all of that information in? There's a lot more information. Perhaps it could. We will try that at some point here. Now, it has made just some very simple assumptions around margins. It's assumed effectively it has assumed the margin. It's assumed the cost of goods sold percentage as a percentage of revenue. Now, it's still working on the revolver issue. What we talked about when we were offline is, will that lead to a situation of circularity in this model when it builds in the revolver? We will see. Time will tell. So we've been going here. How long has the revolver question been running? A good 5 minutes, I think, at this point.
Probably about 5 minutes.
Why don't we take a pause and come back when the revolver is built and see if everything is still working well, and then we'll show everyone that.
Welcome back. We showed you last time it built the model. We've now asked it to do the revolver. We're going to turn it over to In to show that. I unfortunately have to step away for a minute. So Giles is going to close this episode. I'm trusting you with the mic, Giles. Be humble and bring it home, okay? All right. In the meantime, In, go ahead and share what happened here.
So we asked it to build in a automatic revolver. We said borrow whenever there's a shortfall and repay the revolver whenever the company has excess cash. And so what's happening here is I don't see it on the debt schedule. The debt schedule is still just showing the term debt, the long-term debt. However, when I scroll up, we will see, and it also, so it tells us what it did. It went through and it put it in. It set the revolver, made sure that there was cash, never went below 0. If the pre-revolver ending cash was less than 0, it drew. So that's exactly what it's supposed to do. If the pre-revolving cash was less than 0, it would borrow. And if the pre-revolving ending cash was greater than 0, it would repay it to the revolver. So very impressive. That's exactly what we want to do. And then it linked it up and then it verified that the ending cash is negative. So very, very impressive. Now it says minimum cash target was 0. No interest, though. There was no interest built in and no hard cap on the revolver availability. Great. I mean, it's very, very impressive what it did. Let's see here. The balance sheet is still balanced. We can see here the balance sheet is still balanced, but now we actually have a bank revolver, a revolving credit facility in the model. And now it's a formula. It's taking the prior year plus the change. It's doing that. And you can see cash is now 0. It's not negative anymore. It's borrowing, but it's taking the prior year's revolver and it's adding in the change from the financing activities. Now, this is a bit of a long formula. And if you follow through it, it's calculating the change in cash flow, the change in cash, the change in cash flow each year. And it's saying if that change in cash flow is less than 0, then borrow. Otherwise, pay off. Not the most elegant. And, as a modeler, we could give it guidance to improve it, to fix it, but it's still getting the right answer. So I don't know, Giles, I would say I'm quite impressed with this. I still wouldn't want to have it run in 15 minutes, hand it in to someone, but impressive it can get this far.
I'm really impressed. And actually, I think, we would have to test it further. Mechanically, it's doing a lot of things that the other tools were nowhere near doing, which is fantastic. I actually posted about this today. This is the exact point I was warning about on LinkedIn today, though, which is we're going to go through a phase now where it's going to look exciting and you go, oh my God, the balance sheet balances, it works. And I feel like this is the most dangerous period where you go, hang on a minute. Because I think you were saying, Ian, when you tested this a couple of days ago, actually, it didn't get the right answer and there were 1 or 2 mistakes.
That's right.
So the thought of going from this, which is immensely impressive, to, oh my God, I can just click a button and I know it's going to be right. Balance sheet balances handed in. That's so dangerous. However, massive step in the right direction.
Yeah, no, and again, as a partner to help you with your work and to get started and give you a boost for sure. But I need to be able to challenge this new partner of mine and double check. And again, I still have on the balance sheet my deferred income taxes, which is just a dead It's just a straight link. It's a straight up link to a cell. It just said, assume the deferred income tax was constant at $8 million per year. I have no idea why it said to assume it was constant. I guess it made a very simplifying assumption for income tax. Again, we could ask it to run a couple more tests on income tax, but suffice it to say, this far, maybe we'll do some more at a later time, Giles, but this far, it has it's impressed us. And I think tread carefully and tread cautiously and understand what it's doing. But in a half an hour here, generated with a couple revisions, pretty robust, helpful tool so far.
Yeah, I think this is, I mean, bear in mind, this is beta mode. This is, there have been some wild claims from third-party tools, and obviously we will get around to all of them. But weirdly, it kind of struggled with some of the easier audit kind of review things that you asked
Yeah.
it, which I would have thought it would have found easier. And then this, which is by
Right.
far, this requires far more kind of accounting and modeling knowledge. It seems to have done a much better job on. So I don't really understand that.
Well, why don't we try one last one? You're right. It was struggling on the easier one. Why is the balance sheet not balanced? Because in this model, I deliberately unbalanced the balance sheet, and you can see here that it's out of balance. So I'm going to say, why is the balance sheet not balanced? Let's see if it is clever enough to pick that up.
And while
Because
it's doing that, Ian, just off the top of my head, we're probably of the same mindset. I'd love to spend more time on this and give it more detail as a prompt, because what if you did say, like, okay, well, there's debt sculpting that you have to deal with, or like reducing balance depreciation. I get the sense that there may have been a chance that if we'd given it the specific prompts to do that, like you did with the
Yeah.
revolver, maybe it would have done them. I don't know, but you have to know what you're looking for and know what to ask.
oh, absolutely. You need to know what to ask. You need to know what you're looking for. And you need to know how to construct it, at least in your mind, so you can test, challenge, and make sure it's quite reasonable that it will come back with lots of very long formulas. And you'll need to know what they're doing and how they are all working to deliver them to your team. So absolutely. And we'll see here if it gives us an answer to my question, why is the balance sheet not balanced in this model? And it's saying analyzing financial. And why is the balance? It's changed. Why is the balance sheet not balanced? It's investing range issues. It's searching for the balance sheet. It's trying. I mean, again, impressive. It can see it and be aware of it. We're asking it to do a lot here. But did you want to just keep watching or pause and then come back?
I think let's pause. We'll see how it gets on. We'll give it a few minutes and then we'll come back. All right, Ian, we're back. How did it do?
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting on this one. It worked for about 3 minutes, 162 seconds. And again, reminder, I asked it, why is this balance sheet not balanced? I think we're not thrilled that its tendency, as we know with these tools, to make things up. It says the root cause in A1. I'm not sure why it's sending us to A1. It's off by one column references in the balance sheet totals. So totals don't point to the same column's components. So he said K167, this one here, K167. It's currently L161 plus L165, and it should be K. Well, actually, it is K. Like, this isn't true. It's making that up. The total assets is currently L161 plus L165. That's not true. The K167 is the correct answer of K161 plus K165. And it says K186, this one here, total liabilities plus equity, it's saying is currently L184. So it's making that up. It's not, this cell is not linking to L, it's linking to K. So I'm not sure. It doesn't seem to know. And I'm looking at here. It did not realize or figure out that we have a change in working capital sign issue, which is what's causing it off. So yeah, definitely not solving it perfectly by any stretch, Giles.
So bizarre, again, I don't understand the underlying logic, because if it can pretty successfully build, a simple mechanical model, you would have thought it would also be able to review and find errors where what you've got in front of you doesn't match that logic. So I don't know, but I mean, if we were to kind of wrap this up, for me, I'll go first, then I'll hand over to you, Ian, quickly. So agent mode has not done so well in some tasks, but then actually in the financial modeling task, it's done really well mechanically. It's done some things that we would not want to be done in a certain way as professional modelers, but that is still very impressive. And for me, still now entering a phase where that's very dangerous to people that don't know what they have to do as the next step.
Yeah, I mean, listen, agreed. Really exciting to see that. Yeah, I don't understand why it did better building. It did better when I asked it to build a model from scratch than it did checking an existing model. But that means you got to be careful. It seemed like it was doing some hallucinations in its answers when it was looking at an existing model. Again, extremely impressed that it could take a historical set of statements and build up a forecast. But you're right. There will be some line items that it seems like they're not correct, that you don't like, and you'll need to be able to provide guidance and ask it why there's a mistake and how to fix a mistake, etc. So, but overall, this is just beta and version 1. It's exciting to see and think what's going to happen in the future. However, as we've been saying, it does not mitigate the requirement to fully understand every element of it if you truly want to have credibility and impress your colleagues and your team and be reviewed as someone who has a great level of understanding. So it doesn't replace that, I don't think, but it's pretty wild that it can do this very quickly. So that's kind of what I've got. Maybe we'll do some more testing on this tool next time, because I think there's some other things we could do.
All right, well, there you go. That wraps up this episode. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Paul, who's ducked off early, and we will see you all in the next one.
See you in the next one. Take care.
The ModSquad. We are the ModSquad.